Here goes. Words are important. Don't underestimate the power of words. They can certainly be used to obscure, to reimagine, or to reshape ideas. I'm sure we are all aware of this in our ever so politically correct world. My personal favorite reshaping, the global warming catchphrase of the 1990s, is out. For a while now, it's been climate change instead of global warming. You can think about why that shift is made. Come to your own conclusions. Well, that's just an example. The importance of words is nothing new. This week, you will be focusing on an interesting choice of words as your topic of study, the peculiar institution. What does that refer to? The practice of keeping slaves. Used formerly about slavery as an institution peculiar to the South in the United States. Calling slavery a peculiar institution instead of slavery reveals a great deal. Peculiar, unique, different, special sounds a heck of a lot better than slavery, right? A bit of clarification. Slavery is a big topic. It was not invented in North America. Slavery is as old as time. Records of conquering tribes enslaving others go back to 3500 BC. Julius Caesar is attributed with saying, "To the victor go the spoils." And one of those spoils throughout time has been the taking of slaves. A complete historical study of slavery would take years. At the time the colonies were settled on these shores, all European countries were involved in a slave trade. Between 1525 and 1866, in the entire history of the slave trade to the Americas, 12.5 million Africans were shipped to the New World. Of these 12.5 million, 388,000 came to North America. The vast majority were taken to the Caribbean, to Central America, and to South America. Sadly, slavery is still alive and well. Today, 1 in 10 people in North Korea are slaves. And 20.9 million people today are trafficked as sex slaves. In actuality, there is more slavery today than at any time in history. In this really short American Lit course, we are going to focus only on 2 facts about slavery. First of all, in any form, at any time, slavery is evil. And secondly, many individuals fought against slavery in this country, and they were known as abolitionists. Such figures as Lydia Maria Child, David Walker, William Lloyd Garrison, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe, Harriet Tubman gave their lives to fighting against the evils of slavery. I do hope very much that at some time you will read Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. It was published in 1852. 300,000 copies were sold during the year after its publication. It was in demand constantly for another 100 years. When Abraham Lincoln met Harriet Beecher Stowe, he said to her, "So this is the little lady who started the Civil War." The influence of that book cannot be underestimated. Her story of the good, dignified, and Christian slave Uncle Tom, under the ownership of three very different types of slave owners, did much to motivate the North to go to war to end the peculiar institution. So this week you will read about three men who paved the way for abolitionists in America to successfully turn the tide against slavery. Two of these men that you're going to read about are actually British, but without their influence, one wonders if the anti-slavery movement in America would have progressed as it did. The other one you're going to read about was a very quiet Quaker. John Newton, 1725 to 1807, worked in the British slave trade for quite a few years. What is he most well known for today? The hymn, Amazing Grace. You have a relatively short page to read on John Newton. Do be sure to read the links at the bottom of the page. They're short, but there's links to extracts from John Newton's autobiography, and there's two rather short attachments at the bottom of the page as well. William Wilberforce, 1759 to 1833, was a British social reformer. He literally devoted his life to fighting to end the slave trade in England. He was very well received in America and highly influential. Please do watch the movie trailer posted just under your assigned reading page. I hope this movie trailer motivates you to track down and watch the film that tells the story of this truly amazing man. John Woolman, 1720 to 1772, was an American Quaker. I've got a short page just about the Quakers that I think will help set him up. Woolman's journals have become a staple of early American religious thought. As a young man, Woolman began to speak out against slavery. You're going to be reading just a partial excerpt from chapter 4 of Woolman's journals. They're considered a classic in American literature. Your other reading this week is a short story actually written after the Civil War in the 1890s, but it is set during the Civil War, and I think, that historical contextualization is important to note. It's written by Kate Chopin. It is about miscegenation, in Creole, Louisiana. And if the Creoles were kind of French origin, so you'll see some kind of French words as you're reading this story. Kate Chopin was a highly successful writer. She's now considered, this was before the word feminism was around, she's now considered a very early feminist. In fact, her writing career began with stories about Creoles in Louisiana, and they were very popular. After her husband died, she moved back to St. Louis, Missouri. She started walking down the streets alone, how brazen, smoking cigars, and wrote a novel called The Awakening that at the time was labeled sex fiction. I've assigned it before in American Lit, and students are like, where's the sex? Well, it was written in the 1890s. But that novel kind of did her in. Her career was pretty much doomed after the publication of that novel. It just pushed the edges way too far for the times. Your discussion post that is due tonight focuses on a poem by Phillis Wheatley. Wheatley was a freed slave whose early poetry, she learned to read and write, was well received in the North. Her early poetry was very successful. Unfortunately, she died at age 31, and we have no idea what she would have written had she lived even a semi-long life. I think I've given you some helps. If you need a little help with analysis for your discussion post, dig in. I hope you kind of enjoy really embracing some work about these early abolitionists and how they fought so very hard and so very tirelessly against slavery in this country. Have a good week.